Soylent Green is one of the bleakest science fiction films of the 70s, a dystopian world where the biggest corporation on Earth is hiding something unspeakable. But the secrets behind this film are just as disturbing as the one inside it. Did you know the original script contains a single word that turns the entire finale into something much darker? Or that the entire climax has zero dialogue because of a legal battle between the writer and the studio? Today we're uncovering 14 hidden truths about Soylent Green 1973, including a secret connection to the Planet of the Apes and the Ten Commandments movies. Number 1. The one word that changed the ending. Soylent Green ends with Thorne wounded and desperate, begging Chief Hatcher to go to the exchange and tell them the truth. Soylent Green is made out of people. Hatcher promises he will, but the film never shows that truth reaching the public. We never see the Soylent Corporation punished. We never see the system collapse. Some viewers read that final moment as a small spark of hope, that Hatcher will keep his word and the truth will finally crack the whole machine open. But Stanley R. Greenberg's early version of the screenplay adds one tiny detail that changes how we see the entire ending. In that version, after Thorne is carried away screaming, Hatcher stands frozen in place. Then one of the police officers asks him if it is true, if Soylent Green is really made out of people. Hatcher's answer is only one word, maybe. That single word changes everything. It leaves open a much darker possibility, that Hatcher could still choose silence and bury the truth. And the film itself plants a few unsettling hints. When Thorne gets too close to the Simonson case, Hatcher orders him to close it, admitting he has been pressured by the government. And after Governor Santini learns that Thorne has spoken to the priest, he authorizes any action necessary to shut the investigation down. Soon after, Father Paul is murdered in the confessional. Maybe Santini knew, maybe Hatcher knew. Maybe the secret was never just hidden from the public, but protected by the very people who were supposed to expose it. The finished film cuts that line and leaves the ending even more ambiguous. And that ambiguity may be the most disturbing ending of all. Number 2. The Malthusian theory MGM erased. Soylent Green was adapted from Harry Harrison's 1966 novel Make Room, Make Room. But Harrison never fully made peace with what MGM did to his story. In a 1984 essay for Omni magazine, he described the screenplay in one brutal phrase, saying it had transmogrified, denigrated, and degutted the book it came from. When he asked himself if he was pleased with the film, his answer was only 50%. And the reason is easy to understand. Harrison's novel was not really about a shocking cannibal twist. It was a warning about overpopulation, food shortages, and poverty. The book's argument was rooted in Malthusian theory. If the population keeps growing faster than society can feed and house everyone, civilization starts to break down. But the film pushed that warning into a different kind of nightmare. It added the cannibal reveal, the furniture women, and turned Harrison's population crisis story into a horror mystery about people eating people. After that experience, Harrison made a vow. He would never again let one of his novels be turned into a major Hollywood film. And for the rest of his life, he kept that promise. Number 3. The year 2022 became a conspiracy. When the real year 2022 finally arrived, people started talking about Soylent Green again, but not just as an old science fiction movie. Some viewers, especially conspiracy theorists, began treating the film as if it had somehow predicted the world of 2022. After all, the movie is set in that exact year. Its world is falling apart. Food is scarce. The population is overcrowded. The poor are starving. A massive corporation controls the food supply. So when 2022 arrived, with the COVID pandemic still hanging over the world, some conspiracy circles began drawing their own connections. Food shortages, protests, masks, and the World Economic Forum, which they framed as a real-world stand-in for the Soylent Corporation. They also called it predictive programming, the theory that movies, television, music, or media secretly show future events in advance so the public slowly becomes familiar with them. That way, when something similar happens in real life, people are less likely to panic or resist because the idea has already been introduced to them through entertainment. But the theory does not really hold up. The year 2022 was chosen because Harry Harrison himself suggested to director Richard Fleischer that a near-future setting would feel more powerful than the novel's original 1999. It was a storytelling decision, not a prophecy. Still, the conspiracy theory brought a new generation of viewers to the film, and many of them stayed for the actual story. Number 4. The silent chase was a contract dispute. The film's climax features a lengthy chase sequence, and if you've seen it, you may have noticed something unusual. There is no dialogue in the entire sequence, not a single word. This wasn't a creative choice by the director. Screenwriter Stanley R. Greenberg had insisted on a contractual clause that prevented any dialogue from being added or changed without his explicit approval. Greenberg had adapted the script from Harry Harrison's novel, a serious cautionary tale about overpopulation and the collapse of resources. He wanted the film to stay true to that tone. He didn't want the film to turn into a standard action movie with dramatic one-liners and shouting matches, so the entire climax plays out in complete silence, driven only by music and sound effects. What was born from a legal standoff ended up becoming one of the most distinctive choices in the film. Number 5. The man who played his own death. This is the fact that changes everything about Soylent Green. By the time filming began in September 1972, Edward G. Robinson had been diagnosed with terminal bladder cancer. He told only one person on set, Heston. The rest of the cast and crew had no idea. Robinson knew this would be his final role. He knew the death scene he was about to film would be the last scene he would ever perform, and he did it anyway. Heston, carrying the weight of that secret alone, brought Robinson wines and cheeses from around the world on the days Robinson was on set. The tears Heston sheds in the euthanasia scene are real. He wasn't acting. He was watching his friend die and could not tell anyone why. Robinson passed away on January 26, 1973, 12 days after filming that death scene, and 4 months before the film opened. Heston delivered the eulogy at Robinson's funeral at Temple Israel in Los Angeles. In his journal, Heston later wrote, "He knew while we were shooting, though we did not, that he was terminally ill. The very last scene he played in the picture, which he knew was the last day's acting he would ever do, was his death scene." Soylent Green is remembered for its twist, but the real story hiding inside this film is a man who turned his own death into his final performance, and a friend who stood beside him through every take and never said a word. Number 6. The Planet of the Apes reunion that finally happened. Charlton Heston and Edward G. Robinson had already shared the screen once before, 16 years earlier, in Cecil B. DeMille's The 10 Commandments. Heston played Moses, while Robinson played Dathan, the scheming Hebrew overseer who betrays him. But their strangest connection came later, during the long road to Planet of the Apes. In 1966, Robinson filmed a makeup test as Dr. Zaius alongside Charlton Heston, who was already set to play the film's astronaut hero. That test became a crucial proof of concept, helping convince studio executives that audiences could take talking apes seriously. But Robinson never made it into the final film. The ape makeup was too exhausting for him, and Maurice Evans eventually replaced him as Dr. Zaius. That makes Soylent Green feel like a reunion Hollywood had delayed for years. Robinson had almost joined Heston in one of the most famous science fiction films of the 1960s, but it did not happen. 7 years later, they finally reunited in Soylent Green, which became Robinson's final film. Number 7. The furniture women were never in the book. One of the most disturbing details in Soylent Green is the concept of furniture. In the film's overcrowded world, beautiful women are treated as fixtures of luxury apartments, passed from one tenant to the next like a couch or a lamp. Cheryl, played by Lee Taylor Young, lives this way. When the apartment's occupant is murdered, she doesn't mourn him. She worries about who the next tenant will be and whether he'll keep her. You might assume this concept came from the novel. It didn't. Harry Harrison never wrote anything about furniture women. The movie's scriptwriter, Stanley R. Greenberg, invented the entire system for the screenplay, and Harrison hated it. In a later interview, he called the furniture concept completely irrelevant to what his book was actually about, which was overpopulation and the failure of governments to act. Number 8. A drink named after cannibalism. In 2013, a Silicon Valley entrepreneur named Rob Reinhart launched a vegan meal replacement drink and called it Soylent. Not as a coincidence, but as a deliberate provocation. Reinhardt has said he chose the name specifically because of its morbid associations with the 1973 film, knowing it would make people curious enough to investigate the product. The gamble worked. It turned out that Silicon Valley engineers who were too busy to eat actual food did not mind drinking something named after cannibalism as long as it had the right macros. The drink became a legitimate health food brand, consistently profitable since 2020, and was acquired by Starco Brands in February 2023. So the name that was designed to horrify audiences in 1973 is now printed on bottles in grocery stores, and most of the people buying it have never seen the movie that gave it meaning. Number 9. The trailer ruined its own twist. The most famous line in Soylent Green is supposed to be a shock, but for audiences in 1973, the surprise was already gone before they bought a ticket. MGM's theatrical trailer opened with a narrator asking, "What is the secret of Soylent Green?" and then immediately cut to footage of body bags on a conveyor belt, followed by Heston beginning to say the line. The trailer essentially answered its own question. Film historians have since called it a textbook case of a studio giving away too much in its marketing. And the damage went beyond opening weekend. Once that secret was out in public, the ending stopped being just a shocking movie moment and became something people repeated, joked about, and referenced everywhere. That's why almost everyone knows what Soylent Green is made of, even people who've never seen the movie. MGM did not just spoil its own ending. It accidentally turned one of cinema's darkest twists into a pop culture punchline. Number 10. The scene everyone thinks they saw. Ask most people to describe the ending of Soylent Green, and they'll tell you Heston runs through the streets screaming, "Soylent Green is people," at horrified strangers. That never happens. In the actual film, Thorne has been shot. He's lying on a stretcher as paramedics carry him out of a church. He delivers the line to Chief Hatcher, played by Brock Peters, while raising one bloody arm above an indifferent crowd. There's no running, there's no screaming at passers-by. The misremembered version was cemented in 1993 when Phil Hartman spoofed the scene on Saturday Night Live, playing Heston in a series of imaginary sequels called Soylent White, Soylent Teal, and Soylent Cow Pies. Each ending with him running and screaming, "It's people." That image, Heston sprinting and yelling at the top of his lungs, is what stuck, not the real ending, where a wounded man on a stretcher begs one person to listen. That sketch became more famous than the actual scene, and decades of parodies have kept the wrong version alive ever since. Number 11. Hatcher never tells anyone. At the end of the film, a wounded Thorne begs Chief Hatcher to expose what Soylent Green really is. Hatcher promises, "I'll tell the exchange," he says, and the film ends. But here's what you might not have noticed on first viewing. The film never shows Hatcher doing anything about it. We never see him pick up a phone. We never see him confront anyone at the Soylent Corporation. We never see the world react. The last image is Thorne being carried away on a stretcher through a church full of people who even aren't paying attention. Some critics have argued that Hatcher's promise is a placation, not a commitment. He's calming a dying man, not launching a revolution. If that reading is correct, then the real ending of Soylent Green isn't a revelation at all. It's a cover-up. The truth dies with Thorne, and the corporation goes on feeding the world exactly the way it always has. Number 12. The title was changed because of a sitcom. Harry Harrison's novel was called Make Room, and the producers originally planned to keep that title. But someone at the studio raised a concern. From the 1950s through the 1960s, one of the most popular shows on American television was The Danny Thomas Show, which was originally titled Make Room for Daddy. A short-lived sequel series called Make Room for Granddaddy had aired just one season before Soylent Green went into production. The producers worried that audiences would associate the title with a family sitcom instead of a dystopian nightmare, so they dropped the novel's name entirely and titled the film after the fictional food product at the center of its conspiracy. Harrison confirmed this story in a 1984 interview. Number 13. Heston's Trilogy of Doom. Between 1968 and 1973, Charlton Heston starred in 3 dystopian science fiction films that together form an unofficial trilogy of civilizational collapse. Planet of the Apes in 1968, where nuclear war erases human dominance and apes inherit the Earth, The Omega Man in 1971, where biological warfare wipes out most of humanity, and Soylent Green in 1973, where ecological collapse and overpopulation push civilization past the breaking point. All three end bleakly. All three feature Heston as an isolated man confronting the horrifying consequences of humanity's worst impulses. And all three ask the same question from a different angle: what happens after we destroy ourselves? Soylent Green gives the darkest answer of the three. Number 14. Hollywood's Decay became the set. Soylent Green was one of the last films ever shot on the MGM Studios backlot on Overland Boulevard in Culver City, California. By the early 1970s, the studio system had collapsed, and MGM had let its lots decay and fall apart. For most productions, that would be a problem. For Soylent Green, it was a gift. The effects crew needed to do far less dystopian set dressing because the lots were already dilapidated. Crumbling facades, overgrown walkways, and neglected infrastructure looked exactly like a civilization in decline. Director Richard Fleischer later said the lot was sold off as real estate shortly after filming, with the proceeds used to help fund the MGM casino in Las Vegas. The lots were razed in 1973 and replaced with assisted living communities, condominiums, and office complexes. A real-world ending almost as bleak as the films. Soylent Green isn't really about what's in the food. It's about what happens when the truth reaches the wrong hands and the people who hear it decide staying quiet is easier than speaking up. If Hatcher never told anyone, does the truth even exist? Let us know what you think in the comments, and if this video changes how you see the ending, hit subscribe so you don't miss what we uncover next.